Hi, I'm Gary Katz. I want to thank all the folks who bought copies of my DVD programs over the last 20 years. If it wasn't for their support and the support of companies like Windsor One and Stabila, I never would have been able to produce what turned out to be a 10-program series on mastering Finish carpentry. Those 12 to 20-year-old videos look pretty terrible compared to streaming video today. And that's why I'm no longer selling the DVDs. But the carpentry techniques haven't aged much at all. And that's why I'm making them available here for free. Enjoy. Oh, welcome back. This time I brought some help. Jed, what's the matter? You look a little green.
Gary, I knew when I flew out here to LA to work with you on this video, I'd be really close to Hollywood. This might be a little too close.
Oh, no, come on. Aren't the stairs right? Didn't I build them right?
Well, Gary, it's only about 12 inches wide.
Oh.
No, Gary, it's just perfect. The rises are all the same. That's very important. And you've compensated for the thickness of the finished floor and the finished treads at the top and the bottom. It's just that I'm used to doing work that I hope will last a couple hundred years.
Well.
And this, will last 2 weeks and you'll tear it off a wall?
Welcome to Hollywood. We're going to be installing wainscoting on this stair next. I've invited Jed Dixon to help out with this part of the program. Many of you have probably seen Jed's articles on stairs and JLC and fine home building, and I'm sure some of you have attended his stair clinics and seminars at JLC. Jed, I'm really glad you were able to make it out here.
I'm happy to be here, Gary.
Great.
We're going to have some fun doing this together.
We really are.
And not only will the people watching learn something, but I think we will too. In fact, we've already learned a lot.
Yeah, we have. We already have learned a lot.
Oh,
yeah. Wainscoting on a stair always starts with a skirtboard, doesn't it, Jed?
Well, if you want to succeed with any job, you really should start with a drawing. I like to use full-scale drawings, which is what we're going to do here. Let's solve all our problems on paper before we start using expensive wood. First, we have to cut the skirtboards and baseboards, though. Then we can draw the wainscoting. The skirtboard is really the foundation for the wainscoting. It isn't installed first, but it has to be planned first. If you don't lay out the skirtboard first, the wainscoting will never be right.
So show us how you install skirtboards.
Let's put some in.
Do your usual JLC live presentation right now.
Good.
Great.
I'm going to show you a very quick and easy way to put wall skirt in that I've developed over about 20 years of installing stairs. But before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about wall skirt and why it's so important. Wall skirt, of all the elements of a stair, is the one that ties the stair into the rest of the millwork and trim in the house. The wall skirt is basically a baseboard that runs down the stair. It ties the baseboard on the second floor into the baseboard on the first floor. Ideally, the wall skirt should seamlessly stitch the trim on the second floor to the trim on the first floor. And we're going to take the molding that runs along the top of the baseboard and carry that molding down the wall skirt and then miter it level and carry it across the baseboard on the first floor. Before we start cutting wood up and laying it out, we have to do one important thing, and that's to find the angle of the pitch of the stair. You'll find that this angle, as we go along in this presentation, becomes very important. And I'll show you how to find it very accurately with my Construction Master calculator and with a laser level. I'm turning the laser level on, which I've set at a height which is between the second floor and the first floor. And now I'm going to set it up so we have a horizontal line projecting. Laser level is by far the best way to determine floor to floor on stairs. It's very important we get our floor to floor number from where the stair starts to where it gets off. So I'm going to measure this, see where the line hits the laser line hits the tape measure. That's 35 5/8. I'm going to put that number in my calculator. 35 inches 5/8. Then I'm going to measure down to the laser line from the top of the stair, and I've got 9 inches and 1/4. So I'm going to go plus 9 inch 1/4 equals. I get 44 7/8. Now I have to compensate for the thickness of the finished floor here and the thickness of the finished floor here if they're different. In this case, Gary has set the stair up as if they're exactly the same. So this will be 44 7/8 will be our finish floor to floor too. Now we're going to find the net rise per step. We just divide by the number of steps. Remember, you've always got one more riser than tread. In this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rises. So we'll go divide 6 equals, and we get 7.5 inches. Now, you know, this is not exactly 7.5 inches. It actually has a little remainder that's less than 1/16 of an inch that's in the memory of the calculator. So we're going to use this number rather than just typing 7.5 in. We're just going to set this 7.5 inches equal to rise on the trig functions of the calculator on the top line. So I just push rise. Now the rise in this little virtual pitch block in the calculator is set at 7.5 inches. Now I'm going to set the run. Gary has built this stair with a 10-inch run, and that's good because I like to use the formula 2 rises plus a run equals 25 inches. That gives you a nice comfortable climb. He's got 2 rises at 7.5. That's 15 inches plus 10 inches. That's 25. So he's built this with very nice proportions. Besides, he really couldn't make it smaller than 10 inches because 10 is the minimum run allowed by most codes. Now all I have to do is push the pitch button, and I've got the pitch of this stair. I have 36.82 degrees. I'm going to round that off to 36.8. I can find on my chop saw, I can easily find, well, not easily, but I can find 1/10 of a degree. So that's a good enough accuracy for a carpenter. I'm going to write that number down somewhere where I won't forget it, 36.8, because we're going to use that number a lot in the next part of this presentation, as you'll see. All right, now I'm ready to put the skirt board in place. Now I can turn my laser off. We're done with it for the moment. Now we'll put the skirt board in place. You notice that this skirt board will drop right down in behind the rough stair. Gary took my advice and he framed the rough stair off of the finished wall, off of the stud wall, with a 2x4 so that the board dropped in behind the rough stair, and so this trim will drop in. That'll be to our advantage because we only need to scribe the bottom and the top of the skirt board down. I'll show you how to do that in a moment, but first we have to set this at the correct angle. I don't want to set the skirt board just on the nosings of the tread. They may not be perfectly at the correct angle because there may be some variation in the heights of the rises. I'm going to use my digital level to set the pitch of this exactly to my stair pitch. 37. There we go, 36.8. This is an excellent tool for a stair builder. I very rarely use the digital part for level or for plumb, but it's very good for measuring pitches. If you don't have a digital level, you can use a pitch block. This pitch block is a little model of the staircase, a little life-size model. This dimension here is the 7.5 inches, the rise, and this dimension here is the 10 inches. So you'll see that this dimension here, this angle here, is going to be the pitch of the stair. If we were to measure this with a protractor, it would be very, very close to 36.8. So we can use it to set the pitch if we don't have a digital level. And you'll see that I put it on the stair like this. The top is level, and you can see that that bubble is between the lines. So both our pitch block and our digital level show us that this wall skirt is in the right spot. Now I'm going to mark my scribes. You could scribe this down with your divider. You can see it has to come down 7.5 inches to close this gap up. But I found that when you take a really wide scribe with a divider like this, it's very difficult to hold the divider plumb, and so you have some inaccuracies. So when we do a scribe like this, we usually just make a block of wood that's 7.5 inches or whatever our rise is, and we use that to scribe. So I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'll draw a line along here with my block. Incidentally, I'm not wearing my knee pads, but if you're going to build stairs and you want to go skiing when you're over 50, you should be wearing knee pads. And I'm going to scribe the top down, both a plumb line and a level line. Those are all the marks I have to make on this skirt board, and it'll drop right in place. If we have a rough surface like this, we can scribe this, and these lines can be cut with a saber saw. They don't have to be that accurate. If we have a finished floor already in place, we may have to take another scribe, but it'll be a very small one we can do with a pencil. I'm going to take this off and get ready to cut it, but there's one more thing I have to do. Here's the baseboard we're using. As you can see, this baseboard has a flat part that's 4 1/4 inches. Now I've taken a board and cut it to 4 1/4 to use as a gauge block. And I'm going to make marks on the wall at 4 1/4. These marks I'll later on transfer onto my wall skirt. Gary's just made this cut with a circular saw and a saw guide to get a nice accurate cut. We could have cut it with a saber saw, but that wouldn't make a beautifully straight line. We could have cut it with a chop saw set at the complement of 36.8, which is 53.2. But I'm very happy with the cut that this saw makes. Go ahead and cut that notch cut, Gary, will you? And don't cut past the line. Gary, for the next cut, you're going to cut on the curved side, so you have to set it 1/8 of an inch back from the line. By eye, probably accurately enough, if you're careful. Stop short of the cut. Right in the line. I like to see a very sharp pencil line. And when you make your cut, I'd like to see half of that pencil line left on the wood. Cut to the half of the line, as my teacher used to say. I'm just going to finish this off with my Japanese saw. Get a nice fine cut, and it's just as fast as using a saber saw to finish these up. Looks good.
Great, so we're ready to put this in.
Yep. All right, let's see how it fits. Nice and tight. I think we better check this with our digital level, make sure we did everything right. Look at that, 36.8, we're good to go. The next step is to mark the height of the baseboards off onto the wall skirt. Remember those lines I made? I'm just going to transfer those onto the wall skirt at the top and at the bottom. We're going to make cuts here, and they're going to be not plumb cuts, but miter cuts. I want to make a miter cut because, of course, the molding which goes across the top here has to miter down and go along the wall skirt. And just to remind me which way the miters are going to go, I'm going to draw a little line here, a plumb line. And I'm going to draw a little plumb line here. I don't want to cut those miters the wrong way. Then I'm going to square these lines across so that I can see them on the chop saw. And we'll take it over to the chop saw and cut them. Okay, now we're ready to make the miter cuts on our skirt board here. At one time, I would have bisected the angle on the wall, and then I would have taken my bevel gauge and set that to the angle. I would have brought my bevel gauge over to the miter saw and set it at that angle, but I don't need to do that anymore because I know very precisely that angle. I know that it starts at 36.8 and goes to level. So I can set my miter box at exactly half of 36.8. Which way do I swing it? I swing it this way because I've got this plumb line already marked on the stock. Half of 36.8 is 18.4. So let's move it over to 18.4. That's right about there on the 4-pitch mark. Now I'm ready to make my cut. Now my cut on the other end, on the top end, is exactly at the same angle. All done. Let me put this away and we can cut our baseboards from the cutting list. All right, it looks like our wall skirt fits well. I can see the point of the miter here lines right up with my level line. Now we're ready to make the cut list for our baseboard molding. I've got a little scrap of wood here, which I'm going to use as my cut list to bring over to the chop saw. My first baseboard is square on the right, and it's 21 3/16 to the long point. 21 3/16. It's a butt on the right and an outside on the left. Now I'm going to measure my long point to the square top of this wall skirt. So that means when I cut it on my baseboard, I'm going to mark the long point on this line here, the square part, not on the top of the molding. Let me measure my bottom piece. My bottom piece is going to be square on the left, and it's a short point on the right. And I get 20 13/16 from the square cut to the short point. I'm going to write butt 20 13/16 short point. I'm going to take one more measurement, and that's the measurement of my base cap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the acute angled miter here and just bring my tape right down to the bottom, and I can see that molding is going to be 75 3/4. Long point on the right, short point on the left. Now I'm ready to go to the chop saw and cut these pieces. Now we're ready to cut the baseboard. I've got my cutting list here and my baseboard here. My first piece is butt cut on the right, outside miter on the left. So I'll make my butt cut first. Now you remember that my outside miter was measured along this line, not along the top, and that's 21 3/16. What's the angle for this cut? Same angle, but on the other side of the saw. (18.4 degrees). Let's remember that, because we'll be using it a lot. Our next cut is butt on the left, inside miter on the right. I already have an inside miter cut on this, and if I'm careful, I can measure from that 20 13/16. There we go, 20 and 13/16. There are baseboards. Now I can cut the molding. Now I need the base cap. My base cap has got a long point on the right, and it's 75 3/4 inches to the left. It's always a good idea to cut from the long point to the short point because you can hook the long point of a molding much better. In this case, we've got to go back the other way for a long point. 18.4 degrees. Now I can hook that long point 75 3/4 to the short point. The angle remains the same. Okay, we're ready to take these over to the stair and put them in. Now I've cut my pieces. If this was going to be a stair without a wainscot, I'd actually put this in right now, nail them in. But I'm going to put them in so we can lay out the rest of the wainscot. And I'm going to show you how well these joints fit, I hope. That's the right-hand baseboard. Here's the left-hand baseboard. Pretty tight. And here's our molding. Short point on the bottom and long point on the top. Have to admit that doesn't look too bad.
Nice job, Jed, really.
Thanks, Gary. Is that plywood for the full-scale drawing?
Yeah, I'm ready to put the plywood in.
Good, but we can't put that on yet. First we have to install a build-out or backer behind the wall skirt to support the wainscoting.
The skirtboard has to sit on top of the wainscoting and not cover too much of the bottom rail either.
Right, so the backer boards have to be higher than the raw edge of the wall skirt, but lower than the top edge of the base cap. Look, we want the bottom rail of the wainscoting to end about here, a 1/4 inch below the top of the molding. That way, the base cap will only cover about a 1/4 inch of the bottom rail, leaving almost 3 1/4 exposed or revealed. You always want the bottom rail exposure or reveal to be equal to or greater than the top rail, just like the top and bottom rails on a door.
Oh, so the bottom looks heavier in a top slider.
Yeah. If we were to install a traditional stool cap and a 3/4 inch scotia like this, then the top rail would only show 2 3/4 inches and the reveal would be smaller than the bottom rail. I've already got the backer boards cut, but let me show you how I fit them.
Okay.
I cut a 7/8 inch stick so I can mark the top of the backer board. Then I put it on top of the wall skirt and drew a line. Then I removed my baseboard and replaced it with my 4 1/4 inch block and put a 7/8 block on top of that. And I drew a level line. And I did the same thing at the bottom of the stair. Why don't you help me put it in?
Okay. Let me get this plywood out of the way.
That's good. Let's screw that to the wall.
Okay.
If you'll drill the holes, I'll put the screws in.
Okay. Where are the studs? Did you mark for the studs?
I marked the studs on the rough stair, right at the
Oh,
carrot.
I see. Here's your marks. Let me drill a hole here. Great.
Put another one up here. It's always good to screw this on really securely.
Excellent. So that's all the back of board. Great. Let me get a little tacker and we'll tack that to the wall.
All right, I'll hold it up for a moment. Let's put this wall skirt back in so we can see what we're doing.
Yeah, it should just fit. Let me put a tack in that too.
There's our 7/8 reveal.
Excellent.
Looks good.
I want to show you a mistake I've made with wainscoting too many times. I bet a lot of you have made the same mistake.
As soon as the skirt's in, you plumb up from the miter like this.
Exactly. Right off the end of the tip of the miter, I start plumbing up off of there to get to my top rails.
Yeah, I can see that from the way you cut the plywood.
Yep, that's exactly what I do.
That's because you moved too quickly from the skirt up to the top rail. Let's lay out the bottom rail first.
Okay.
What we'll do is we'll take a piece of 1x4 stock and use it to trace on the top and make our lines. Here, and draw the rake line.
And I'll take it from there and take it down to the bottom of the skirt and draw that in. And I've got a short one down here we can tie the rest of this in with.
See how those miters align from the bottom rail down through the skirt board? That's what we're looking for. That's what a good stair should look like. Now we're ready to draw on the transition styles. The transition style breaks the horizontal wainscot from the pitched wainscot, running down the stairs. We want to locate the transition style so that our horizontal panels are simple rectangles and so that our raked panels are simple parallelograms. We want to avoid those quirky 5- and 6-sided panels that you see. Look like a dog's leg.
And we want to have one edge of the transition style, like right here, that's plumb with the miter in the top of the bottom rail, and plumb, that same edge, plumb, would line up with the miter in the top rail, with the bottom of the top rail.
Now we're ready to draw the plumb lines. I'll make it level and you can draw the line.
Okay. Ready?
Take it away. Draw it black this time.
Great.
Let's move down to the bottom.
You got it?
Not quite. Oh, okay, I'm plumb now.
Oh, top moved a little.
Right there.
Now we're ready to draw the top rails.
Well, sort of. At least we're almost ready to draw the top rail, but first we have to make a decision. What's going to drive the height of the chair rail? We have to choose either the finished height of the level rail or the finished height of the rake rail.
Oh, you mean in case there's chair rail already in the house?
Yeah. If we're trying to match the height of an existing chair rail, then the horizontal rail height is a deciding factor. Say the chair rail in the house is 35 inches from the floor. We'd have to draw a level line right here, about 35 inches from the floor.
Like so.
Yes. And then our rake rail, the diagonal line at the top of the rake rail, would have to be at this height. where these lines intersect.
So the chair rail then would really be the deciding factor here.
That's right. But if the architect wants us to make the rake rail at the same height as rake handrail, which by code is 34 inches above the nosings of the treads, then that decision drives the height of the horizontal level rails too. And it also determines the height of the chair rail throughout the house, at least to the nearest cased opening.
A little later we'll show you how to lay out the rail from the top down so you can pick the exact heights you want for horizontal and rake railing. And we'll show you some tricks that might help solve other problems too. But for this example, we're going to go with the height of the raked rail, and we'll put it at 34 inches above the nosing. Let's lay that out right now.
All right. I'll hold a level plumb, and you can mark 34 inches. Hold on.
34 inches. Tell me when you're plumb.
Right there.
Great. Okay. Made a little X there.
Take it away, Gary. All right.
Terrific.
If this wasn't a Hollywood stair, this line between these 2 points might be 12 feet long, and we'd snap it with a chalk line. I'm not a roofer, and I like a chalk line that makes a very fine line, not a fat line. This Tajima chalk line has a very fine string, and the line isn't any wider than a pencil line.
Cool. Okay. Why don't we use this piece of 1x4?
All right. The top of the 1x4 lines up with our X's. Up,
Okay.
up, up.
Keep your eye on me. I'll mess this up.
All right.
So the top of the 1x4 is right at our 34-inch marks.
Right. And that's the top rail
Okay.
of our wainscot. We can draw a line
So
on the
we
top
could draw
and bottom.
a line on the top and the bottom.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Now we can see exactly where the bottom of the rake rail meets the bottom of the horizontal rail, right at the edge of the transition stile.
Now we can draw the bottom of the horizontal rail in here.
I'll draw mine up here too.
Right. That puts the top of the horizontal rail here.
I got mine too.
Might as well draw the miter in, Gary.
All right.
Now look at this. See the way the bottom of this miter is plumb over the top of this miter? This is the correct way, the time-honored way to lay out wainscoting. Now we need to decide whether the transitional styles are common styles or rake styles. What I mean is, you can place the transitional style on either side of this plumb line. This plumb line could be the right edge or the left edge of the style. If we use rake transition styles, like this, then the panels will be smaller on the rake and they'll be bigger on the level. If we use common transition styles, the panels on the level will be smaller and on the rake will be bigger. I like to make the panels as close to the same size as possible, measured along the horizontal, not along the diagonal, so that they have the same area. But that doesn't mean I draw a horizontal line all the way across the top of the stair, one that might end up way over my head.
That's another thing I used to do the hard way. I always ran a level line, just like this, all the way across the bottom rail to lay out the style locations on the rake rails. Once I drew that long level line, I'd plumb down. I'd find my center marks on that level line, and then I'd plumb down. But you don't have to do that anymore. You can use a calculator.
And with a calculator, you can figure out the horizontal width of the panels too, so that all the panels are roughly the same area. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's the end style. And here's the transitional style.
On this stair, common transition styles are going to work better for two reasons. The panel size will end up being about the same, at least up at the top of the stair, and we'll end up with two styles at the top and bottom panels, which is going to make it a lot easier to pre-assemble this frame and the lower frame. But for now, let's lay out these rake styles. Since we've got these two laid out and the two down there laid out, we're ready to lay out all of these rake styles.
Let's use a calculator to find the uncentered location of these wall
Yeah,
styles.
that's a lot faster. Let's use a calculator.
Construction calculators have really made stair work a lot easier. As I said when I was cutting the skirt boards, once you find the pitch of the stair, write it down. You'll use it throughout the finish. Remember the pitch of the stair was almost 36.8 degrees? We're going to need that number to lay out the styles. We want to divide the area between the transitional styles so that we have 4 perfectly spaced panels. The math is a little tougher to do because there's only 3 styles but 4 panels. This situation is exactly the opposite of what Gary covered at the beginning of the program when he subtracted the last style on a wall in order to work with an even number of styles and panels. Right now we want to add a style, add an imaginary style, so we can do this layout perfectly. But you can't just add 3.5 inches. You have to add the width of the style on the diagonal of the pitch. We can determine that diagonal measurement easily. It's just a matter of finding the right angle. Once we locate a right angle, we can use a construction calculator to determine the diagonal measurement. Here's the right angle formed by the bottom of the style. We need to know only 2 things about a right triangle, and the calculator can tell us everything else there is to know. We already know those 2 things. We know the style is 3.5 inches wide, so that's the run, and we know the pitch of the stair, 36.8 degrees. I'll enter 3.5 inches, 3 inch 1/2. That's the width of the style, and press run. Next I'll enter 36.8, 36.8, and press the pitch button. Now I have the triangle in my calculator and I can press the diagonal key, which gives me the diagonal measurement of the style, 4 3/8 inches. What do you got, Gary?
I got 75 3/4 right on.
There you go. The space between the transitional styles measures 75 3/4. 7/5 inch 3/4 plus the diagonal width of a style 4 inch 3/8 equals 80 inches and 1/8.
Excellent. Make sure you enter that number into memory, just like we did on the horizontal frames earlier in the program. And that way, if you decide to change panel layouts or play with the numbers to see how many panels you want to use, you can do it several times and not have to keep typing in the same number.
I'll push memory plus.
Excellent.
You know, you configure the number of panels on a long run so that the rake panel size is balanced with nearby horizontal panels.
You mean even this wall here, we can do it without a long level?
That's right.
Okay.
We'll do it in the calculator instead. With the pitch measurement in the calculator, 36.8 degrees, we'll push recall memory, that's 80 and 1/8, equals diagonal. Then we can push run, we get 64 3/16. 64 3/16 is the measurement horizontally between these 2 transitional styles. Then you won't have to work again with a level and line way over your head. For example, let's say we divide this horizontal run distance by 4. Divide 4 equals. We get 16 inches and 1/16. That's the unit size of 1 panel in 1 style on the horizontal.
So it's about 12 inches for the panel size.
That's right. If we push recall memory again, and divide by 4, the first style location is at 20 and 1/16. There's 2 ways to pull these measurements. Remember, we added an imaginary style, so we could do this by burning 4 3/8 and holding the tape measure like so to locate each additional style. In that case, we'd be marking to the back 4 3/8 to the back of each new style. Or even better, we could skip burning an inch and hold the folding rule or tape measure at the tip of the miter and measure to the far side of each stile.
Like up here, we could hold it up here or down there.
Yeah, let's hold it. I'll hold it on the 0 right here.
And then we'd be marking to the far side of the stile.
Right.
Okay.
Are we going to do it your way, Gary?
I'd rather do it my way because that's the way I imagine. I like to imagine the imaginary style. We kind of drew it that way. Let's do it that way.
All right.
Okay. So we'll hold it at 4 3/8.
You're the boss. Right there.
And you enter the numbers and I'll mark them.
All right. We'll run a series of numbers. 20 and 1/16.
Okay. Where's the next one?
And
that's mark and go.
That's
Because
right.
I'm marking to the near side of the stile.
That's right.
Because we have a stile here already. That's our first stile. The imaginary stile is our first stile. So this is our second stile.
Mark and
Okay.
go. I like that, Gary.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go plus equals.
Uh-huh.
It added the number I had, 40 and 1/16.
All right. So I'm marking right here. So it's mark and go, and I'll put an X on the right side of the mark.
I'll push equals again. It repeated that addition of 20 and a 16th, and I get 60 and 1/8.
60 and an eighth, and that's our last one.
Well, let's push equals again and see if we come out where we want to be. I get 80 and an 1/8.
Exactly, right on. Great. Let's lay out the stiles.
There you go. You got a level?
Yeah, I got a little level here. Why don't we put it right down on the...
Right down on the
skirt
okay,
there.
down a bit. I'm on the money.
One sec.
You plumb?
Right there. Let's pencil both sides.
Okay.
Great. Well, let's do the next one.
I'm on. Right there.
Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, right there. Perfect. Now the last one.
Let's go up under like that. You ready?
Almost. Okay, right there.
That looks good. Move your level up a bit, Gary.
Excellent.
All set.
Now let's check and see that their panels are all even sizes. What do you got at the top there? What did you have at the top?
Oh, 15 and a half.
15 and a half, 15 and 9/16.
Yeah.
15 and a half.
No, I'm 15 and 9/16.
15 and a half. 15 and a half.
15 and 9/16.
Oh, they're almost perfect.
I think that's good
Oh,
enough.
that's great. Now let's do a cut list. Okay, so now we're ready to get a cut list of the rails, the stiles, and everything so we can start cutting stuff.
Where should we start? Should we
Let's start with the bottom rails.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute. We already know what these are.
I know what that is. 75 and 3/4. We've measured that 5 times already.
It's the same measurement as the backer, right?
Yep.
And this one's the same measurement as this one.
It's
Because they
got to be.
stack plumb, right?
They stack plumb.
Okay, so let me write that down. So we've got 2 bottom rails, all right, two rails, 75 and 3/4, and that's long point to short point.
Right.
Okay.
You know what the angle is?
Yeah.
18.4 degrees.
18 and a half. Yeah. Great.
All right, you ready for a list of
Yeah, let's measure.
rail pieces?
Yeah, give me the bottom ones.
This is the bottom. And it's square on the left, 19 and 3/16 to the short point.
19 and 3/16. And that's to the short point.
This is the bottom top. It's square on the left, and it's 17 and 13/16 to the short point.
17 and 13/16
That's what it says.
to the short point. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's measure the top.
Now the top bottom. This is long point on the left,
Okay.
and it's 22 and 11/16 to the butt joint.
22 and 11/16 to the long point and a butt on the right. And what's
Okay,
that one?
That is 23 and a half.
Got it. 23 and a
Long
half.
point on the left, square
it.
on the right.
Got it. Now let's measure the common styles.
And they should all be the same.
Yeah.
I've got
I got 19.
19 even here.
Great. Yep, 19 on the first one. And 19 right on the second one too. So that's the 4 common styles. They're 19 inches. But what about the rake styles? How long are those?
Well, if we were using applied moldings, the rake styles would be the same length as the common styles.
Exactly.
Short point to long point.
Exactly.
Gary, do you know that the transition styles have to be exactly 1/8 longer than the common styles when you use cope and stick joinery?
No, why?
It's that right angle again.
Wait. Show me a right angle. This is cope and stick stuff.
Notice how the miter and the cope has to be long enough to cross the sticking on the diagonal?
Oh, on this one right here.
When it crosses the sticking on the square, we know it's a 1/4 inch longer because the sticking is 1/4 deep.
Oh, so the standard one has to be a 1/4 inch longer just to cover the 1/4 inch cope right here, the sticking on it.
I think you're beginning to get it. But
Okay.
when it crosses on the diagonal, it has to be longer, just like a miter is longer than a butt cut.
All right. All right, right in here.
We'll figure
Oh, so
out.
this is where the little right angle is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they came out 1/8 too short when you cut them before, Gary.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we can figure this out on our calculator. Here's our little triangle. We know the angle is
Okay.
36.8 pitch.
All right.
We know the run is
1/4 of an inch.
1/4 inch.
All right.
1/4
So you solve for the diagonal.
run. That's right. Diagonal. 5/16.
5/16.
It's 1/16 more on.
Oh, so you add a 1/16 of an inch
And
for
then
each miter.
another 16th.
And that's where you get the 1/8 of an
1/8
inch.
longer. You
All
got
right.
it. For those of you who aren't familiar with cope and stick joinery, let me show you how it works. We've set 2 different shaper cutters up. The first one is the cope cutter, and the cope is exactly the inverse, the mirror image of the stick. In other words, we're removing wood that we leave when we make the stick. So we cope the ends, and that creates the tenon and this little cope. And then we run a cutter called a stick cutter, and that forms the bead molding on the edge of this. When we push it together,
Push the cope into the bead molding.
it forms really a perfect jack miter, what I would call a jack miter, where this is a butt joint, but this appears to be a perfect miter joint.
Uh-huh.
And with cope and stick, you can join things at any angle. You get a very nice looking miter,
No matter what angle.
no matter what angle. Here
All
we,
you have to do is run this through the cope bit at whatever angle you cut it at.
that's right. And it's just like a cope that you would cut with a Collins coping foot or something.
Uh-huh.
When you put it together, even at this acute angle, you get a nice looking miter.
Even at the acute angle. And so actually it simplifies when you're the job of running paneling up a stair because you don't have to cut these acute angles with applied molding.
That's right. Not only does it add a structural tenon or tongue and groove, but it also solves the problem of having to cut a whole lot of little miters on all these beads.
And at the same time, when you put the tongue on the cope into the groove on the sticking, it flushes out the face if your bits are
That's
set
right.
up right.
That's
Cool.
right.
So that means that all these center ones are going to be 19 and an eighth.
3 at 19 and an eighth.
So we need 3 at 19 and an eighth, and we're ready to cut some wood.
Oh, not quite. Let's measure for the panels.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to use cope and sticking, right?
Right.
All this is going to be cope and sticking. How are we going to? Oh.
Well, we can measure the panel openings and then add twice the depth of the cope of the
Okay.
groove and the stick. How deep is that groove?
3/8.
So we'll add 3/4 of an inch.
3/4 of an inch, and that'll give us the panels.
That's right.
So we really don't even have to take the template, but we'll use it as a template anyway if we wanted to.
That's right.
Okay. So we'll measure the. Oh, we already know what the length is because of the styles.
Yeah, but we're going to measure on the horizontal this time.
All right.
And let's start at the bottom and work our way up.
Okay. Go for it. I'll write them
Got
down.
another cut list ready to go?
Yep.
Well, this is 19. We know that.
Yep.
So it's 19 3/4
Okay.
by 11 3/4 plus 3/4. That's 12 1/2.
Okay.
And these are 19
And an eighth plus
So
the
that
3/4 on a diagonal.
yeah,
right?
let's just add 3/4 because we need a little wiggle room there.
Oh, so you're not going to add the
No.
extra diagonal.
Let's go
Okay.
19 7/8. Long
19
point
and
to short
7/8.
point. 12 3/8.
Oh, that's a good way to get the measurements. You don't have to
Yeah.
do the math. You're just going to burn 3/4 right off the edge of that stile.
Yeah, let's just go 13 1/8.
13 1/8. Well, these are going to be the same.
They should all be the same.
Okay, so we
In
need
fact,
3 of those.
they are. No, there are 4 of them, Gary.
Oops, you're right.
13 1/8
Okay,
and 13 1/8.
excellent.
And the last one is 19 3/4 high.
Right.
And the width, you forgot to draw in the last panel.
So burn 3.5.
Would that work? No, it won't. You're going to make me do this the hard way.
Great.
So I'll burn 3/4 on that. That's 16 3/8.
16 3/8. Great.
Okay.
Excellent.
Now we're ready to cut some wood up.
Now let's cut some wood. There's one.
Okay, that's going to be the bottom rake reel. Let me take a look and see if it fits. It's on the miter there. Gary, can I get you to take, I'm going to make a mark. I'd like to take about a shy 1/8 of that.
There's the second one. I'll take a little bit off of this one.
That's the right end. That's it, right? It looks like you're going to have to do the same with that one too. Give me a moment. That's about perfect.
There's
What
the
do you got?
first bottom one on the left. It's
Bottom
the
left?
bottom.
Right. Looks good.
And that's the bottom top rail.
Got it. Right on the miter line.
Excellent. That's the top bottom rail for the top.
Looks good.
And that should be the top
it.
bottom. That should be the top.
Okay, before we go any further, Gary, let me mark, that's right on the miter. Let me mark an X where the stick molding's gonna go. And let me go AA, BB, CC, DD on all the joints. And that way we won't make any mistakes when we do it. And now I'll mark an X on the edge that gets the stick molding. And I'm gonna mark A, B, B, so we put them together, right? X here, and this will be C, C, D, D. And all the marks are on the face. Ready?
So we'll cut the common styles next. And we'll set up a repetitive stop for these. There's 4 of them. There's the common styles.
All right. Gary, before we assemble this, I'd like to make sure that the walls are plumb, because if we have to scribe these, they're going to have to be ½ an inch wider and made out of wider stock. Let me just quickly check those walls. Right between the lines. You got it right this time, so they're okay. Now you got to cut the rake styles.
The rake styles are cut at almost 37 degrees, and we want those to be 19 1/8. And we'll set up a repetitive stop for them too. Let me get a cut started here. Let me clean up, I'm going to clean up this end a little. And now I can cut the other. And you know what? We only need 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. But I'm going to cut in, wait, I'm going to cut an extra one just in case we have a slight mistake. I'll cut an extra one of those. And while I'm at it, I'm going to cut an extra common style too, and you'll see why in just a minute. That should do it.
Okay, we're all set.
So we've got the two end styles with a mark on one side because we're only going to stick them once, right?
Yeah.
And then we've got the two commons because we're going to stick both sides of those. And then we've got an extra common, and we've got an extra because we got 4 of the rake styles to go up in the center here. And we've got all the rails cut, so everything's cut. So we're ready to do the cope and stick.
Let's do it.
We're just pulling the machines. All right, we're ready to start sticking these on this side and coping on this side.
Are you going to stick the rails first?
Yeah, because the rails only get sticking, they get no coping on them, so I'll just stick the 2 edges of each rail. And
These pieces, we have to cope them first because we want to cope first and stick later in case the cope blows out a little bit. The sticking will remove that blowout.
Excellent, but we don't have to worry about that with the rails because they're just sticking.
That's right. In fact, it's a good idea that you should stick this first because I can use that stick to check if the router is set at the right height for the coping.
To dial in the setup on the coping.
Yeah.
But if you only have one router, then what do
If you
you
only
want to
have
do?
one router, you have to do 3 setups. You have to run the sticking first to get a sample stick. Then you have to set the coping up and cope it and check and see whether it fits the stick. And then you cope everything. And then you have to set the stick up again and stick everything. 3 setups.
So it's kind of tough with one router. We're lucky. We've got 2 good-sized routers here. We've got a 2-horse router and a 3-horse router. We've got good dust collection so we can switch back and forth between these 2 setups. I'm using 2 Russo tables, the router tables here, and we'll get you in here closer in just a second and we'll show you just how, what kind of safety setups we have here. But this one has a roller hold down system that also pulls the stock against the fence, whereas this one has a featherboard hold down system because we're just going to be pushing straight down directly in the area that we're going to be coping. But this one also has a very nice miter gauge hold down so that while we're coping we can grip the hold down and hold that stock straight down to the table, and you'll see us doing that in just a minute. The dust really, really important. If you don't pull the waste out of the cut while you're making while you're machining the profile, then the waste will get caught up with the bit, and you'll probably get additional chipping and a rough cut. It's really good to get the waste out of there, the waste material out of there as quickly as you can.
That's right. The hold down serves 2 purposes. One is to hold the work down on the table and make it accurate. It's very important that the work be flat on the table when you cut this way. Secondly, it keeps your fingers out from the blades.
This is another example of where safety works hand in hand with quality workmanship and craftsmanship. So don't cut corners on safety, because if you do, it means you're going to probably be cutting corners on the quality of your work.
And while we're talking about it, remember to wear ear protection when you use a router. It's a high-pitched sound. If you want to be able to hear your grandchildren laugh,
Yeah.
ear protection.
And you've probably noticed me using my miter saw throughout the program without ear protection. That's probably because I'm turning back and forth and talking and everything. But normally when I'm working in the shop by myself, I've got my earplugs in all the time and eye protection. So I think we're ready to go here. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay. I didn't turn on the dust collection yet. I just wanted to show you this real quick before we really get into real movement here. This is a push stick I'm going to be using to push the sticking through the machine here. It's clipped on the corner so that we'll be sticking the stiles actually that run up the rake. So we're going to need this corner clip to help push them through. And you'll notice that I've stuck the edge of this because I'm using it to push the stock all the way through the second roller. And why don't you run one cope and so you can walk the audience through that too while we're at it, before we turn on the vacuum here.
We're going to take a trial cope in a minute, and I'm going to use the push gauge, but I've also made a blowout preventer stick. This stick acts as a push stick for the cope piece as it goes through, because the end grain of the wood will tend to blow out from the router bit. And when I put a stick up against the back of it, that prevents it from blowing out. So I'm going to set the push gauge square and push the blowout preventer right up against the fence, and I can hold it down with the push gauge, and then we're ready to go. Let me just make a trial cut. It looks about right. Let's take a fit on the stick. That's pretty close to flush.
Excellent.
I think you did a good job setting it up.
All right, so everything's set up, and we're going to go ahead and cut all of them now. Let me take this piece back. Great.
Okay, Gary, we've coped all our styles and 2 extras.
Excellent. So all we have to do now is stick the stiles.
That's right.
But we got to be careful though. 2 of the commons only get stuck on one side.
That's right.
I'm going to do those first. Okay. Oh, this is an extra. So I'll do these 2 first. And that finishes all the coping and sticking. Now we can assemble all of these, right?
We have to make the panels first, Gary.
You're right. Okay, well, let's get rid of all of this. We'll put all this away, and we'll bring in the Festool MFT table, and we'll cut all the panels.
You want to do that? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
We're all done with coping and sticking.
We're all done. That's the last of the two end pieces. So there's
Right.
the top and the bottom.
That's the bottom.
And now we can cut the angle pieces. So let me flip this up out of the way. And let me set this aside. Yeah, great. Just loosen that.
Yep, okay.
So I can swivel this over. And I'll put that out of there. Now I'm going to swing this to 36. Right? 35, 36, actually 37. So it should be right in there. And let me drop this down. And let me back this up so that it's right on the edge guide, on the rail guide here, so we're really close to that.
I cut a block on the miter saw at 36.8. So let's see if it's right. Let's give this a little tweak this way.
So you want to come back just a little bit,
Yep.
right there.
Tighten it up. That's good.
Okay, so I'll tighten up this knob and that'll hold the whole thing still. Great.
That should work fine.
An MFT table like this makes cutting angled panels. The rectangle ones are much easier on a table like this, but the angled panels are a lot easier. This is something you can't do on a miter saw. And if you go to turn them upside down, you're never able to cut perfectly right on the previous angle.
And it's very difficult to do on a table saw, too.
Oh, I can't imagine how to do it on a table saw. So this setup really helps an awful lot. Here's a piece that we already started a little earlier. We got to cut these with the stock upside down. So we'll slide this in, and I think we better clean up this cut first because the corner's nipped.
A little bit ragged.
Yeah, so let me tighten this down. Great. Great. What's our measurement there?
Short point to long point, 19 and 7/8.
Yeah, give me a mark there.
Give me a little bit.
You probably noticed that we've got another sheet, a sacrificial sheet down here on top of the MFT table. This is a 3/8 thickness MDO board, and what that does is it allows us to get our stock, which is only a 1/4 of an inch thick, up a little bit higher, just a hair higher than the angle guide here. Because if the 1/4 inch stock were right down on top of the MDF table here, then we wouldn't be able to secure the stock down when we drop the rail guide on top of it. The rail guide really acts like a clamp because it has the rubber friction tape on the bottom. So when you set this down on top and you're running a saw in here, you're pushing down on the saw, it's actually holding this piece down so you don't have to clamp your workpiece down at all. The rail guide does it for you.
Yep.
So we want to get that line right up. Wait a minute. I don't want to cut them this way. I want to cut them so I'm going right to the line, not to the wrong side of the blade.
Let's turn it around then.
So let's feed our stock in from the other direction.
There we go.
And you got a measurement mark there. So let's slide it back till that measurement mark is right at the fence. Put that right on the fence. Excellent. A little more. Right there. And now we can drop this repetitive stop in here and just slide it right up against the miter there.
That way we don't have to go an 8 to the side of the mark.
That's true. We don't have to cut wide of the mark and include the kerf in the measurement.
Right.
And we don't have to measure again at all.
Okay.
Okay. That's one. And this will be two, and we only got to cut one more. Well, now that's two, so we have one more panel to cut.
Right. We're using flat panels in the frame we've made here. I think raised panels look a lot better in cope and stick wainscoting. I know Gary showed you earlier how to cut raised panels with a router bit and a router table. In my shop, I raise panels frequently on my shaper, but I also cut them sometimes on my table saw. Let me show you how I do it. I start by laying out the edge or section profile of the panel I want to cut. I'll draw it on this board. It's the full-size drawing again. First, I'll draw a line to represent the edge of the panel. Then I'll draw a line that represents the groove that the panel goes into. Then I can draw the thickness of the panel. Then I can draw any kind of raised panel I like within the limits of the saw. I'm going to make this one about 1 3/4 deep with an 1/8 inch reveal. And I'll set my bevel square on here and draw the bevel. Just like that. Now I've got a full-size drawing of my raised panel edge, and I'm ready to make some table saw cuts. We do this operation in 2 cuts. The first one is the shallow curve for the shoulder of the panel, which is about 1 3/4 in from the edge. I'll set that up now. I'm going to set the saw to an 1/8 inch deep. I'll move the saw fence in and set it at 1 3/4. This saw gauge is very accurate, but I'm always in the habit of checking it with my square. Now I can make the first set of cuts. And I'll do it on my trial piece because I don't want to ruin my panel until I'm sure it's right. That's about 1/8 of an inch deep, and I'm comfortable with that. That's easy with a push stick. That's the shoulder of the raised panel. Now I set the saw up for the bevel cut. First I'll pick the angle up off my drawing with my bevel square. The bevel's 15 degrees. I checked it already by holding my bevel square against the fence of my miter saw. A miter saw can be a convenient protractor. Now let me make this setup for you. First, I have to remove the riving knife. Now, I'm going to tip the blade to 15 degrees. And you'll see that we've made a 15-degree zero clearance fence, or zero clearance blade insert. It's very important to have a very tight insert in the saw when we do this, because the edge of the panel is going to be running very close to the blade, and I want to be very sure that it's supported throughout the cut. I'm going to set this to 3/16 of an inch. I've taken that off my drawing, and I can raise the blade up until it just nicks the edge of the first cut that I made. Now I can make my trail cut on my sample. I want to test this and see whether it fits into the frame of the panel. Yep, that's about right. So now I can do my finished piece. Let me remove the scrap first. I'm going to stop the saw each time I remove the scrap because reaching over the back of the blade is one of the most dangerous things you can do on the table saw.
Excuse me for interrupting, but notice how close Jed's thumb is to the table saw blade? Jed's been working with wood for over 30 years. Like all of us, he's developed techniques and habits that work for him, even though some of them aren't exactly safe. It's hard to change old habits, but we should try, both because of safety and to improve the quality of our work. Here's a jig for cutting raised panels on the table saw. On the left end, an adjustable hold-down travels in a slot cut through the back of the jig. That's for raising different size panels. The toggle clamp at the front and the fence help hold the panel in position. The jig slides on top of an accessory fence. Just like my tenoning jig, a wooden track provides security and a straight cut. In this case, the accessory fence is extended a foot or more in front of the saw, so wide panels can be secured before they reach the blade. I didn't have the hardware in my shop, so I made a quick clamping system for this jig. The wooden hold-down fixtures fasten permanently. I used a Kreg clamp to secure different size panels at the front of the jig.
There we are. Now all I have to do is sand this to fit, or sand it to take the saw marks off. I made a sanding block here which is cut at 15 degrees. So it will sand both the raised part of the panel and the little edge of the shoulder. All right, now I can assemble the panel and frame. When I made this panel, when I measured for it, I was careful to make it a 1/4 inch less than the total width from bottom one groove to the other because this is a solid wood panel and it's important that I allow some room for expansion and contraction due to changes in humidity. Here you go. Isn't that a nice traditional detail with the small bead molding and the simple but bold raised panel? before we cut these, I want to adjust the stops. I'm pocket holing the scribes now. I'm pocket holing the styles now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Not the scribes, the
Not the
styles.
scribes, the styles.
Okay. And this is a common one, so it's got the butt cuts on both ends.
I'm doing the common ones first,
Okay.
and I've got all the common ones and the extra
What a good idea.
laid out here, and I've got the faces up on each one.
What a really good idea. What made you do that?
And I've got the rake ones laid out the same way, and I'm trying to be very organized because we're doing a lot of operations on these pieces, and it's not hard to accidentally turn something the wrong way up when you pocket hole and put a pocket hole in the wrong side.
My goodness.
One of us did this.
We're not going to say who.
Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't Gary though. So let me go through and do the rest of these, and I'm going to go through them in an orderly manner so I get them all done,
Excellent.
and I'll check them before we change the setup.
And you've got your stop set up so that you can slide it up against the outside and cut one, and then slide it up against the outside of the other side, right?
That's right. I want them wide enough apart so that they apply force to both sides of the tenon, but not too close to the groove here,
right.
and they stick.
Right.
Remember, if we ruin one of these, we have to go all the way back and
No,
do
we don't.
all the operations.
We cut an extra.
Ah, we cut an extra.
Okay.
So we have to ruin two of them.
Great.
That's all the square styles, Gary. Now, time
Now
to do the
we'll
angled
do the
ones.
angled ones, and we'll set up a little bit differently. It's going to come up right there. So we want to take this piece here and just cross over that, but we don't want the hole to go inside that sticking, so we push it a little further than that. And that's where we set the stop. So now I'll come in and slide the stop up, just to give me a guide. And we'll have to slide this one over too. And this time, I look at the bit, and I take this edge and I slide it right over the bit where I want it, and I'll slide this stop up, and I'll be able to cut the next hole. Yeah, that should be pretty good. Yeah, we're getting nice even coverage across the back of it. You know, we didn't come up with this pocket screw combination cope and stick joinery thing on our own. Charlie and Tom Nego from Chicago really introduced me to this idea. They did some stair work and posted the photographs on the JLC Finish Carpentry forum. And when I saw those a little while ago, I just couldn't believe that somebody was using pocket holes with cope and stick. I'd never heard of it done before. When we tried it, man, were we sold
wow.
instantly. And wait until you see how easy it is to assemble this stuff.
And it's a huge nuisance trying to assemble these without the pocket holes
Oh.
because you have to clamp them in this direction.
Oh,
it's very hard to do
especially-
that without damaging the
Especially on the rake, it's really tough to
Oh, yeah.
assemble it. So we'll just drill these out too. Okay, now we're ready to do the rails.
All right.
And we got to be careful here. We're going to keep them face up too, but remember, we don't have to do both ends of these, just the miter, right?
Right, and we're only going to do one D and one C.
Okay.
We're not going to do both Ds because then the pocket holes would
Oh,
interfere with each other.
Okay, so we only have to do C and D. We don't, in other words, we don't have to go ahead and we don't have to drill pocket holes in the long ones.
That's right.
Okay.
That'd be a convenient way not
That's
to do
nice.
that.
So we don't have to set those long ones in here at all. So I'll put this in here and I'll adjust those. I'm going to adjust that stop again and bring that up right to the side. And I want to get that hole so it's right near the groove. I want to leave as much room as I can this time because we're going to have to put another little piece of joinery in here too. We want to leave some room for those dominoes, right? Right here. So I'm going to move this in so it's just past that point. We'll have room between these two in here for a domino. Perfect. Now we've got all of the pocket holes cut and we're ready to cut the domino joints.
Okay. You'll notice that we've organized all these pieces with the tops up and with the ends that are going to be cut facing Gary.
Yeah.
Once again, it's important to stay organized because if we cut one of these upside down, they won't line up flush.
And we've got the domino set up so that it's registering off the face of the 1x. It's not sitting on the table. You'll listen here. See, it's rocking just a hair. I'm able to sit it down, push it down flat against the top of our stiles here. Or sorry, our rails. These are all of our rails, so that it's registering right off the face of it.
And you'll notice that although we didn't pocket hole these guys, we're going to put a domino in both these and these because the domino tenon has to be inserted into both pieces.
So we're going to mortise these too.
We're going to mortise these two, and I'm going to flip them around end for end so we get both
So we get
ends.
both ends? Okay. And I'm registering this pin on the domino on the edge of the long point of these miters. And you got to be careful because the pin sometimes will slip on this, right where the sticking is, and then your mortise won't be registered perfectly along the width of the miter. So what I've done is I've switched the domino to cut the next size width in mortise so that we'll have a little extra wiggle room in here just in case that pin isn't registered perfectly on each one. I think that's about it. Now
That's
we
right.
can, okay. Let's just cut a bunch of these. That's the last one. Now we're ready to assemble all of this stuff.
Okay, let's set up a big table so it'll be supported when we...
Oh,
put
great.
those
I got a
together.
sheet of plywood we can use.
Good.
Okay. So we'll put a little glue on these miters, and I'll put some inside this mortise too. Why don't you stick a domino in that?
You can see that the domino has got a little bit of play this way, but it's very tight this way, so it should be easy to line it up nicely.
I'll glue up that miter too. And
We've
we
checked
can-
to see that we're B here.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We can slip that together. Great.
line
Let me
that up.
put the, we really don't, we almost don't even need the Craig clamp, but it's just a little bit more protection. With the domino in there, it's going to really hold those pieces flush, but that'll really do it. We're using the little portable Craig clamp here, the one with the steel plate, because we're going to be moving this from one end of the table to the other. Oh, that's good.
Hold it right.
Yeah, you see how those, hey, we got a couple extra pocket holes in this one. Go ahead and
I
use
don't
them.
know who did that, Gary.
I told you, you're the one who's making the mistakes. Great. That was no mistake. We did that
That's
intentionally.
right. It really pulled it together.
Let's slide down to the other end
At
here.
least it wasn't on the good side
Yeah,
for once.
for once. Okay. Here, I'll glue this one up. And we got some glue inside of that mortise. There you go.
I love these dominoes.
Yeah, they are great, huh?
It's got lots of room side to side, but it's very solid up and down.
And got some glue inside that mortise. And then we took this thing and put it down here. Great. And then we took this clamp, and it really is nice because it applies pressure across here and holds things together while we put the screws in.
But those screws will close that joint right up.
Bingo. And now get in real tight on this joint in here, and you'll see that close right up and the glue come out of it. Great. All right, so that's the first one. So this is
Set that on the flat.
this is the top rail. So we'll just let me just set this on the floor out of our way here.
Okay.
And now we'll do the other one.
C.
C is C and AA. Okay, so now we can turn this upside down safely.
All right.
Great. Why don't we start right down there?
So we got a few extra pocket holes here too.
Look at that. Oh, that's nice.
I didn't do those, Gary.
Double security. Okay. So we'll slide this in. And we get the glue. We'll glue this one up.
I always do it with my finger and then wipe my hands off on my pins.
I know. I wasn't going to do that. Oh, I'll wait for him. Okay, you got that. And then we'll put some glue on here. And then we'll put that down. You ready? And we'll get that lined up, put that in there. And this time I'm going to push on that as you run your screw in. Ready? Good. And I'm going to move this over a little. Great. That's both frames. Both rails, top and bottom.
That's right, top and
So now
bottom.
we're ready to assemble the stiles into this thing. This is really nice because with the dominoes in here and the pocket screws, I mean, it's like rock solid.
Even without the glue, when the glue
Yeah.
sets, it won't come apart.
Excellent. So let's put this out in the front here, and we'll get all of our stiles and line them up and put them in along with the panels.
Good. Before I put this last style in, I'm going to clear a little bit of crumbs and sawdust out of here so it seats nicely.
So the stuff doesn't interfere with a good tight fit.
That's right, that's left over from the pocket holes.
Okay.
Then I'm going to line it up with the mark line. And that went in very nicely.
And we got this layout line right here, right off of our template. Before we took the rails off the wall, all we had to do is trace the plumb lines right onto the top and bottom rails to get our layouts. And we've got everything else already installed in here. We just got this last little style to put
put
in.
some glue on it.
I'll put a little glue on this tenon. Great. Let's put it in there. You got it?
Yep. And look how easy this is to clamp with pocket screws.
Let's move that just over, just a hair.
That good?
Great. Oh my God. I just love this.
It's so much easier than trying to put a clamp block
Yeah.
in or hit it with a hammer or something.
And with the pocket screws, I mean, you don't even have to wait for the clamps to dry. I mean, we're going to be able to stick this in like instantly. We've got two more panels. There's a panel.
All right. We deducted 1/8 of an inch from the width of these panels to give us a little wiggle room. If you're using solid wood panels, there's going to be much more expansion and contraction with humidity
Across the grain.
across the grain. So I would rip another 1/8 of an inch off this to compensate for changes in humidity.
Just to allow it to expand a little bit and not tear the frame apart.
That's right, just on solid wood panels.
Okay. Now we're ready to put the
bottom rail on.
top rail.
That's the top rail, right?
Yeah. Grab that in so I don't bang it against that side. Great. Okay, why don't we start at your end?
Yeah, we need
And
to
we
put
should
some
put a
glue
little
on
glue
it.
on these, huh?
Here we go.
And you get your end started, and then I'll.
All right, we'll
I'll
work
help you
along
hold
this
on.
very carefully so we don't knock these joints apart. Just a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to hit it
I'm gonna
from the
have
other
to.
side.
I know. Let me work this in first.
All right.
There we go. Now you're gonna be happy. Okay.
All right.
Let's start a pocket screw down there. And it'll help us as we kind of tighten this thing up across the top.
Let me give you my hammer and you can work your way along starting here and I'll...
Oh, this is a nice hammer.
Yeah, that's an excellent tool. Carpenters don't really need those metal hammers anymore.
No,
Just
we don't
moving
drive
things
nails.
along. Ever
Nobody
since Nana
drives
done-
nails. Hang on.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get this started down here. I think it's hung up right here. Well, it's right on the layout marks.
Yep, and the joints are tight.
All right. That's the last one.
Well, let's give it a fit.
Okay.
I think we have to do a helicopter turn here, Gary.
You mean a whirlybird?
Yeah, an airplane spin from the WWF.
How's your side fit?
Fits pretty nice on this end.
I'm tight right up against the back band.
Good.
Wow, perfect. Hey, that's how easy it can be to put wainscoting up a stair. If you pre-assemble it, if you make a pattern, we didn't use this paneling precisely as a template, but we could have. This one was so simple, it was really easy just to put it together right on the table here. You know what we ought to do?
Let's trim it out.
Yeah, let's take it off, pull the paneling off, and put all the trim on.
Okay, good.
Okay. Lay it right up here on the table. That's a good joint.
Okay, here's the rake molding. My miters are nice and tight.
That's good. Yeah. Here, let me feed you this. Grab yours. Yeah.
This is a nice little rabbited chair rail, isn't it?
This is Windsor One's chair rail. It's a piece that's in their 5th collection. They don't talk about it too much. You don't see it in the catalog, but it's on like the last page or something. It's a nice traditional look, isn't it?
See how important it is to make a good drawing and lay stair projects out properly? That's the only way to ensure success and to enjoy your work.
I couldn't agree more. Let's look at this a little more closely though. Look at these little miters, not these right here, but the little miters right up here in these corners. This is something that you only see on cope and stick frames. If you were to use like applied panel molding on these frames in here, you wouldn't see these little miters. They wouldn't be short of the rail like this. The miter is really just a tad short of the rail right at this point, and it occurs down here at the rail too. And also where Jed's standing, he can show you where his are just a tad short. And
this
I'd
one's
say it's less than a quarter of an inch. You know, they don't bother me that much.
That's true. Though I think that if they're cut tight and they don't force you to make an irregular panel, these odd corners are just fine. One thing I think we should discuss is the rail height. Some carpenters and some of the architects I've worked for feel that the top rail on the horizontal runs should be at 36 inches. And the top rail on the rake run should be at 34 inches to match the handrail height. We touched on this earlier, but let's explore it a little more.
I'm glad you mentioned that. In fact, earlier we explained to everyone that we were laying out this paneling using the skirtboard as the foundation. We started at the bottom and we worked our way up, plumbing up from the miters in the skirtboard and from the base cap molding, from the baseboard as well, up to the top rail. When you do that, you don't have control over the top rail locations.
If you want to choose specific top rail heights, then logically you have to start your layout from those measurements, from the top.
To show you what we mean, we're going to lay out one more example of wainscoting on this stair. I hope we haven't driven you nuts yet, but to be really thorough, I really want to cover this from both directions. So we covered it from the bottom up. Now we're going to cover it from the top down. We're going to pick specific top rail measurements for the rake rail and the horizontal rail, and we'll move from the top down. But first, we got to take all this stuff off of here. Okay. We'll pull off this molding.
Okay.
Great.
I got it.
And this one too. On this example, we started our layout at the top, like I said, and we worked our way down.
It's 36 inches from the floor to the horizontal rail, 34 inches from the step to the rake rail. Of course, there's no treads on this stair. The thickness of the chair rail hasn't been considered. There's a lot left to the imagination on this stair.
Wait. Are you giving me a hard time again?
Naturally.
Okay. The point is, when you change the height of the chair rail, especially this much, you can no longer align one edge of the transition stile with the miters in the top and the bottom rails. There are several good ways to resolve this common problem. One is to cut a stile that spans both miters, which is kind of what we've done here. If you look really closely, you'll see the top has a clipped cope. Part of the cope intersects the horizontal rail right up here, and the other part of the cope intersects the rake rail right down here. This is a really easy joint to cut. Let me show you how. First, I'm going to cut this off square at the length we need. And then I'll measure in for the clip we want on the corner, 1 1/8 inches. And I'll swing the saw now to 37, slightly under, because we want it 36.8. And I'll cut this clip off right to that line. And now all we've got to do is cope this. We can cope it the same way we did the other pieces. Let me adjust this so we get it at the right angle. That should be about right. So we'll cope this. So there's the cope cut across the rake, and now all we have to do is cut the cope cut across the horizontal rail. So we'll swing this back to 90, tighten it up. We'll turn this around, make sure that the stick is in there in the right direction. And we'll hold that down real good. There we go. This is the back side of the stile, and this is the front side with the cope and the little clip corner. So it'll fit up in that angle perfectly. Well, that wasn't so hard.
Yeah, that's not so hard, Gary, because it's an inside corner.
All right. Yeah.
But on the bottom of the upper transitional stile and the top of the lower transitional stile, you'd have to cut a crotch cut miter. And that's not so easy to cut.
No.
Let alone cope.
No.
I don't think you can cope that, can you?
Well, there's a way.
All right. Here's a good way to solve that problem. Locate your stile so that the back of the sticking aligns with the miter. Cut a butt cut on the stile, then run the stile through the table saw and remove the sticking. You can cut a fresh piece of sticking from a longer 1x.
That's what we did. And I'll just hold this up here.
And then you apply the sticking after the panel's installed. It's pretty easy to cut this delicate molding with a utility knife and carve out a clean, tight cope joint. I mean, Gary can do it.
Yeah, if I can do it, anybody can do it. All I'm doing is tracing a miter line right across the top of this little piece of sticking, kind of following parallel to the bottom of this rail. And I'm just going to take my knife and just drop it right through that miter. And then I'm just going to come through it with my knife and kind of cope the center of that out. And if I don't cut my thumb here, it might look pretty good. There we go. And then it just fits in. It makes a nice cope joint right there. And we'll do the same thing at the bottom, and we can then apply this molding on after we put the panel in.
That's right.
Or actually put the whole panel together, and when we're all done, we'll just stick this molding on with the
That's
panel.
probably the easiest way because you have something to set it against when you're down.
So
You know, there's another way to do this, Gary, which is just to stick a piece after it's coped and it's the right length, and the copes will already be on it, and then you rip it off and you have your piece already coped.
Oh, cool. So then
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to do that with a utility
Yeah,
knife.
especially if it
All
was
right.
oak or some other material.
You know, Ron Roth, a seasoned finish carpenter that I met online, he works out of Virginia. He doesn't really like the look of these funny little corners either. And for him, he's got a whole different way of solving this problem. Ron's learned a lot of the business on his own, same way we've learned most of the
Yeah,
things we know.
so to say.
By trial and error, not apprenticeship. So let me show you what he does. Ron intentionally moves his transition stiles over so that they span both the top and bottom miters. To handle the crotch joint cope, Ron laminates the transition stiles from 2 pieces of stock. For stain grade work, he rips the stile out of 1 piece of wider stock, like a piece of 1x6, then miters the crotch cut, copes each piece, then does the glue up before mitering and coping the inside corner. Here's another way one manufacturer solves a similar problem. Now, this isn't meant to bash anyone. In fact, New England Classic came up with a pretty creative way for solving a big problem with their line of manufactured wainscoting. To maintain the same rail and panel height, even in a remodel with existing stair conditions, New England Classic ships 10-inch transition stiles for every stair. That way, the stile can be located anywhere near the skirtboard, baseboard connection. Part of the stile can be on the pitch of the stair, part can be on a butt cut and land on a horizontal rail. If it's cut correctly, the rail height will be consistent throughout the home.
That's a good example of one solution. Even though it's not one I particularly like, wainscoting must be designed properly or it looks pretty cobby. Here's what I mean. See how that bottom rail miter follows the miter in the stair? But the stiles aren't installed plumb with the miters. The carpenter must have believed the top rail measurement had to be consistent. The measurement from the stair nosing to the pitched railing has to match the distance from the floor to the horizontal railing. The price he paid was poorly designed panels. At the top of the stair, the carpenter had to add a little triangle so that the panel would pocket completely in the stile. At the bottom of the stair, you see a nipped corner in the panel. This carpenter was obviously talented. I took these pictures in a beautifully designed and executed Victorian house in Boston circa 1870. The quality of the woodworking was exceptional, but even this skilled carpenter failed to plan ahead. He didn't recognize he was climbing out on a limb before it was too late, and the result is a clumsy solution to a common problem. Sometimes the best of us have to make compromises, but planning ahead will prevent most of them.
Really, there's a lot of ways to design the intersectional and layout of the stiles and rails. The stiles don't have to align on the same side with the miters in the skirtboard. They can be placed on one side or the other.
In fact, one of the best solutions to changing rail heights is to place the transition stile so that one edge aligns with the miter in the bottom rail, while the other edge aligns with the miter in the top rail. Then one end is a butt cut and the opposite end is a rake cut. This effectively moves the top rail the full width of one stile up or down the stair, changing the height of the top rail up to 3 inches. Once again, you need a full-size drawing to work this out.
Here's an example of what we're talking about. For now, take a look at some photographs of a stair that Tom and Charlie Nego sent me. Tom and Charlie were also the carpenters who taught us how to use those pocket screws with the cope and stick joinery. Notice how the bottom of the stile is butt cut and the top of the stile is rake cut. It's clipped to follow the pitch of the stair. That's one way to ensure that the molding will cover the panel and allow a substantial change in chair rail height.
I like that photo too because it shows a scarf joint in the skirtboard. I prefer a miter in that location for several reasons. First, look at how the grain jumps off the wall from that joint. There's no continuity, no flow. But remember, the scarf joint doesn't change the geometry. The short point of the scarf joint is in the same location as the short point of a miter. So the style location doesn't change. But there's one more big issue here we have to think about. Because we're starting from the top of the stair and choosing specific rail heights, we're forcing the skirtboard up or down to maintain the proper reveal on the bottom rail. We can move the skirtboard up and down by changing the height of the scribe block. But we can't move the skirtboard down too far or the base cap will land too close to the nosings on the stair treads. At the same time, a skirtboard that's too high, even if it's mitered, will no longer flow with the baseboard, and that miter could land over the first tread. This is one more reason to lay your work out full size. Whenever you're paneling a stair or doing any work on a stair, always work from full scale or detailed drawings. A drawing will reveal all these problems before you make them. You'll also be able to design better top rail height that's consistent between the raked runs and the horizontal end runs by manipulating the baseboard height, the reveal of the bottom rail, and the transition style locations.
A drawing can also be used as a template, right? I mean, we could have, like we said several times, we could have used the white paneling that we had in the background here that we were drawing on. We could have used that as a template.
Oh, that's right. A template is a great thing to make for a stair. Full-size templates, especially if you're going to use cope and stick joinery. I used to make full-size drawing templates for every stair project. I laid them out full-size on plywood, just like you're talking about. But ever since I started using CAD, I've been able to skip that step. You don't have to build a template if you can print out your CAD drawings full-size and then use them as patterns.
Definitely a drawing's a must. I don't think we need a full-scale drawing or template for this stair. It's pretty simple. As you all saw, I drew this whole stair to scale, including the wainscoting, using SketchUp. I've included a tutorial on this program for drawing wainscoting using SketchUp. A three-dimensional drawing really helps visualize the whole project. There's some good techniques you can use in SketchUp that speed up the drawing process and make it easy to lay out the whole stair precisely. Plus, you can play with the transition style location and design until you reach a solution that really pleases you. Hey, I hope you enjoyed watching this program. Jed and I sure enjoyed making it. We don't often have an opportunity to work together, and I always learn so much when I work with other carpenters, especially Jed. When I try to understand something more completely, I think we're all fortunate to be carpenters, especially at this time when the internet allows us to reach out and communicate with each other almost immediately. I want to thank all the carpenters who contributed to this project by providing photographs, drawings, and helped me understand wainscoting, especially on stairs. Ron Roth taught me a lot about how to cope a crotch cut miter. Through sharing email and drawings, we both learned how important the height of the baseboard and the height of the skirtboard is to the transition style locations. Charlie and Tom Nego, their exemplary work inspired me to think deeper about wainscoting installations. Harvey Rothman, who shared so many photographs and SketchUp drawings of his wainscoting work too, and of course Jed, who's always an inspiration. I hope I can get him to come back here soon, really soon, so he can make a stair building program.
Did I pass the audition?
Yeah, you'll do fine. Okay.
I've been building stairs and wainscoting for over 25 years, and I've looked at a lot of very nice historical homes too. But I've learned a lot about wainscoting in the last few weeks working with Gary. I want to thank Gary for helping me learn how to teach carpentry as well as doing it. As everyone knows, teachers learn more than their students. I've often thought that carpentry is a career you can be proud of. Every day we have the extraordinary opportunity to build something from nothing that will last longer than us. Our work is interesting because we're able to improve our craftsmanship and learn more about our work throughout our lives. So let's try hard to do work that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren can be proud of.
I'm inspired by all of you too. The viewers and readers I hear from, knowing that you care enough to read and watch programs like this one, to learn more and improve the quality of your craftsmanship and protect the legacy of carpentry, that means a lot to me. Keep your eye on my website for the next program in the Mastering Finish Carpentry Series, and cut carefully. I want to thank the following carpenters who contributed to this project. Without their photographs, advice, and suggestions, this program would not have been possible. Jed Dixon, Greg Burnett, Larry Katz, Charles and Tom Nego, Andy Engel, Jim Chestnut, David Collins, Harvey Rothman, Jeff Burks, Robert Carney, Marco Fee, Ron Roth, R.J. Davison, Daniel Parrish, Jesper Cook, and for all the carpenters I've sadly forgotten to mention, I blame my age. I want to also thank the following corporations who care about education in our industry and who make this whole series possible. Windsor One, green from tree to trim. Stabila, always trust, never adjust. Festool, faster, easier, better. FastCap, saving valuable time. Craig Tool Company, building innovations. Cadex, better tools.